Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. We head now to the national scene where President Bola Tinubu has tasked states to domesticate the National Urban Development Policy to bolster town planning. Tinubu, who was represented by the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Ahmed Dangiwa, made the call at the 2025 Nigerian Institute of Town Planners NITP 56th International Conference and annual general meeting in Abuja. The theme of the conference was refocusing planning administration towards sustainable urban governance and development. He said that the federal government placed urban development at the heart of the national transformation agenda. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has pledged to support Dangote Refinery's plan to expand production capacity to 1.4 million barrels per day from 650,000 barrels per day. Tinubu gave the assurance at the 19th edition of the OTL Africa Downstream Conference and exhibition in Lagos. The president, who was represented by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil, Heniking Lokbobiri, described the project as a game changer for Nigeria, West Africa and the global energy market. He added that the refinery's expansion would not only boost Nigeria's self-sufficiency in refined products, but also strengthen energy supply across the continent. Recall that Aliko Dangote, president of Dangote Refinery, recently announced a plan to expand the refinery from 650,000 barrels per day to 1.4 million barrels per day. Away from that, the Federal Ministry of Steel Development has signed a joint strategic cooperation declaration for the establishment of a $400 million modern steel plant in Ewekoro, Ogun State. The agreement with Inner Galaxy Group's Stellar Steel Company Limited is part of ongoing efforts by the government to accelerate Nigeria's industrialization. According to the Minister of Steel Development, Shaibu Aldu, in a statement, it also aimed at achieving self-sufficiency in steel production. The minister, who signed the declaration on behalf of the federal government at his office in Abuja, said the partnership marked a major milestone in the administration's drive to revive the steel sector and position it as a catalyst for national economic growth towards a $1 trillion economy by 2030. In another development, the newly appointed service chiefs have arrived at the National Assembly for their screening by the Senate. They arrived at the National Assembly complex at about 10 a.m. today, accompanied by other senior military officers. Recall that the Senate had on Tuesday brought forward the screening to today, reversing its earlier decision to conduct the exercise next week. The announcements came shortly after Senate President Godswill Akpabio read a separate correspondence from President Bola Tinubu seeking the confirmation of the appointment of Chief of Defense Staff General Olufemi Oluyede. Akpabio said the change was necessary to enable the military chiefs to assume their duties immediately. Meanwhile, the proposal by the National Assembly to conduct the next presidential and governorship elections, as well as that of the state and National Assembly elections in November next year, has triggered reaction from the coalition powered by African Democratic Congress (ADC). The federal lawmakers are proposing that the next general elections should be conducted 6 months before the end of the current administration's tenure, instead of February or March, as has been the tradition in the past. The proposal, contained in a draft amendment to the 2022 Electoral Act, seeks to ensure that elections into the offices of president and governors are held not later than 185 days before the expiration of the tenure of the incumbent. It is specifically proposing November 20, 2026 for the election into the offices of the president and governors. To the Green Chambers, the House of Representatives has resolved to investigate the circumstances surrounding the abandoned construction of a multi-purpose dam project valued at 22.58 billion naira in Kajola village, Ile-Ife, Osun State. More than 2 decades after the contract was first awarded. The decision followed the adoption of a motion sponsored by Abimbola Adelesoro titled Need to Complete the Construction of a Multi-Purpose Dam Project in Kajola Village, Ile-Ife, Osun State. Leading the debate during Tuesday's plenary, Ajisoro said the contract for the dam was initially awarded to Reynolds Construction Company, RCC Nigeria Limited, December 21, 2004, at a cost of 2.24 billion naira, with a completion timeline of 24 months. He recalled that although the contractor eventually mobilized to site in 2008, work progressed slowly and reached only 40% completion before being abandoned due to inadequate funding. In a separate development, Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka has announced the revocation of his visa to the United States of America. Professor Soyinka made this known on Tuesday during a meeting with journalists at the Conga's Harvest Gallery, Freedom Park, Lagos Island. The Nobel laureate said the U.S. consulate informed him of the revocation in a letter dated October 23, 2025. He expressed surprise and confusion over the decision, stating that he was unaware of any wrongdoing that could have been linked to his criticism of the U.S. President Donald Trump and his policies. Over now to the world of politics, the Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun has approved the deployment of 45,000 officers for the Anambra governorship election billed for Saturday, November the 8th, 2025. Egbetokun said this on Tuesday at the meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, ICCES, held at INEC headquarters, Abuja. The IGP, represented at the event by the Commissioner of Police for Special Intervention Squad, Abayomi Shogunle, said the deployment would ensure adequate security before during and after the polls. He announced that pre-election deployments would begin November 1st, with tactical units conducting clearance operations to neutralize threats and arrest potential troublemakers. Igbetoku also disclosed that only security agencies officially represented in the ICCES, such as the Police Departments of State Services, DSS, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, and the military would be involved in the election. We move now to Africa, where Madagascar's military ruler named today a government replete with familiar faces from the island's political elite, sidelining young protesters' calls for a clean slate after President Andry Rajoelina's ouster. Angry over chronic power cuts and economic stagnation, the poverty-stricken Indian Ocean island Gen Z protesters sparked a mass movement for change, which led to Rajoelina's flight after Colonel Michael Rajoelina mutinied and seized power. Rajoelina, who was sworn in as president October 17, announced today that he had selected a 28-person cabinet, which includes several ex-ministers and Rajoelina's former right-hand man, after consulting Madagascar's main power brokers. Several key figures from the Rajoelina era made a comeback in the new cabinet, raising fears over whether the new government will heed the Gen Z movement's demands. Still in Africa, Sudan's military chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has said commanders in the war-torn city of El Fasher made the decision to withdraw in order to spare civilians from what he described as systemic destruction and killing at the hands of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF. The remarks came as activists and humanitarian groups reported that RSF fighters seized a major army base, the final government stronghold in the western Darfur region, marking a significant turning point in a conflict that has devastated Sudan since April 2023. Burhan vowed retaliation, accusing the paramilitary of committing crimes not only in El Fasher but also across the country. On the foreign scene, China has said that leader Xi Jinping and United States President Donald Trump will have in-depth talks on major issues on Thursday as expectations grew for their high-stakes talks in South Korea. Trump has said he expected their first face-to-face meeting of his second term to result in the United States lowering tariffs imposed on China in relation to fentanyl. Beijing confirmed the face-to-face meeting on the sidelines of a summit of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, which is taking place in the city of Guangzhou. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said the talks would take place in Busan, a short flight from Guangzhou. Still on the foreign scene, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the military to carry out intense strikes on the Gaza Strip after accusing Hamas of violating the U.S. brokered ceasefire. Minutes later, Hamas said it would delay handing over the remains of another host state under the terms of the truce deal over what it called Israel's truce violations. The Palestinian militant group had earlier said it would hand over another host state body scheduled on Tuesday, amid mounting Israeli pressure after Hamas returned only the partial remains of a previously recovered captive. Hamas handed over late on Monday what it said was the 16th of 28 host state bodies it had agreed to return under the ceasefire deal, which came into effect October 10. But Israeli forensic examination determined Hamas had in fact handed over partial remains of a host state whose body had already been brought back to Israel around 2 years ago. Still to come in the news. Super Falcons sealed 2026 WAFCON qualification with 3-1 aggregate win over Benin Republic. Stay tuned for details of this and more in a moment. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. And now to conclude the news on this hour. On our business news, the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Taiwo Oyedele, has projected that states could earn more than R trillion naira annually from 2026 when new value-added tax reforms take effect. Oyedele made this disclosure at the launch of the Budget State of States 2025 report in Abuja, where he delivered the keynote address. The event also marked the 10th anniversary of the initiative. The fiscal expert noted that while recent economic reforms had more than doubled the Federation Account Allocation Committee transfers from 5.4 trillion naira in 2023 to 11.4 trillion naira in 2024, many Nigerians were yet to feel any direct relief. According to him, governments now have more money in their coffers, but households continue to struggle with reduced disposable income. Still in business, the naira continued appreciation against the United States dollar at the official foreign exchange market on Tuesday as Bureau de change operators decried access to foreign exchange. The Central Bank of Nigeria's data showed that the naira strengthened to 1,448 naira 20 kobo, up from 1,452 naira 79 kobo traded on Monday. This means that the naira gained 4 naira 59 kobo against the dollar on a day-to-day basis. Meanwhile, at the black market, the naira remained stable at 1,485 naira per dollar yesterday, the same exchange rate as on Monday. The development comes as the Association of Bureau de change operators of Nigeria lamented their members' access to dollars despite the continued rise in the country's external reserves, which stood at $42.86 billion as of October 22nd, 2025, according to CBN's data. On our health news, the Federal Ministry of Health has announced that it has engaged the Independent Scale of Practices and Other Related Offences Commission to monitor and track the utilization of the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund across the country. This was disclosed by a team led by a member of the Ministerial Oversight Committee, Basic Healthcare Provision Fund Secretariat, Dakum Benji, during a one-day onboarding workshop for state oversight committees of the BHCPF for the Northeast region held in Bauchi. Speaking to journalists on the sidelines of the event, Benji said the move aimed to ensure accountability, transparency and efficient implementation of the fund at the federal, state, local government and facility levels. According to him, communities must remain vigilant and report any misuse or diversion of funds to the appropriate authorities through the text, phone and email channels provided for feedback. Still in health, the Nasarawa state government has ordered the immediate closure of the Lafia Murden market following the deteriorating sanitary conditions within the facility. The State Commissioner for Environment and Natural Resources, Margaret Eleo, led officials of the Ministry and security personnel to seal off the market in Lafia on Tuesday. Eleo explained that the decision followed repeated warnings to traders to improve hygiene and maintain a clean environment, which was largely ignored. To the world of sports, Nigeria have qualified for the 2026 Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON following a 3-1 aggregate win over neighbors Benin Republic. The Super Falcons drew 1-1 with the Amazons of the Benin Republic in the second leg of the qualifier played on Tuesday in Abeokuta, Ogun State, but a 0-2 victory in the reverse fixture in Leme, Togo, courtesy of goals from Esther Koronkwo and Chiwendu Ihezuo, was enough to secure Nigeria's ticket for the tournament with a 3-1 aggregate win. Defender Asaleg Plumtree headed, in from a brilliant Okoronkwo corner to give Nigeria the lead at the MKO Abiola Stadium in Ogun. It was the Al Tihad Stars' first goal for the Super Falcons since switching allegiance from England to Nigeria in 2017. Still sport Borussia Dortmund eliminated Eintracht Frankfurt from the German Cup in the second round yesterday, winning 4-2 on penalties after the match finished 1-1. Dortmund were faultless from the spot with Fabio Silva, Nicolas Suile, Carney Chukwuemeka and Felix Mecha all converting, while Ritsu Doan and Ferris Cherby both missed penalties for the home side. Frankfurt's Mario Götze and Axel Nahov, both cup winners with Dortmund, combined to put the home side in front after 7 minutes. Götze threaded the ball through the Dortmund defense, allowing Nahov to strike home. Dortmund hit back 3 minutes after the break, Julian Brennan tapping in a pinpoint Julian Ricin cross from close range. On entertainment news, legendary Nigerian musician Innocent Idibia, widely known as Tubaba, has written a deeply emotional open letter to commemorate his 25th anniversary in the music industry, expressing profound appreciation to everyone who has played a part in his remarkable journey. In the touching piece titled Open Letter of Gratitude, Tubaba, 25 years in the industry, the multi-award-winning artist reflected on his musical odyssey, the people who supported him, and the lessons he has gathered over the years. He described his career as one filled with gratitude, memories, lessons, and love, while acknowledging that his success story would not have been possible without the faith and support of those who stood by him, even in uncertain times. And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You have been watching Spectrum Television News at 12. I am Uyai MM. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good afternoon.